I'm going to call the school committee meeting to order. Wendy, if you can take a roll call, please.
Chairperson Patrick Kelly.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Rebecca Bowler.
Here.
Sandra Flowers.
Present.
Angelica Gaines.
Present.
Robert Leary.
Here.
Thomas Phelan.
Here.
Dr. Charles Shoemaker.
Here.
All present.
Thank you.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And unfortunately, we do have a moment of silence to observe tonight for some former employees. First, John Joseph Martin, who passed away July 2nd, 2012 at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Born in Newport on June 16, 1944, he was the son of the late Mary Martin. Mr. Martin grew up in Newport and graduated from Rogers High School. For 18 years, he was employed at the General Electric plant in Newport and then changed his career path, becoming a full-time commercial fisherman. Mr. Martin is survived by his wife, Linda Baines Martin, who served as Special Education Director for the Newport Public Schools before retiring in 2006 with 33 years of service. He also leaves two daughters, Dorothy Shore and her husband, Cord of Newton, Mass., Donna Litke and her husband, Michael of Glastonbury, Connecticut, and one sister, Mary Sylvia of Middletown, with 4 grandchildren and many relatives and friends. He was the brother of the late Dorothy Amato. The Reverend Sandra A. Leonard, who passed away on Friday, July 13, 2012. She was from East Setunic, New York, and was a beloved minister, wife, mother, grandmother, and sister. As a minister and nurse practitioner, she really loved and cared for those she served. Reverend Sandra A. Leonard was the mother of Rogers High School math teacher, Jala Leonard. Michael J. Behan, who passed away Saturday, July 14, 2012. He was born in Newport to the late James K. Behan and Margaret Burns Behan. After graduating from De La Salle Academy in 1945, he enlisted in the Navy and was a veteran of World War II. He returned to Newport in 1946, working for local contractors before becoming Director of Buildings and Maintenance for the Newport Public Schools, retiring in 1989 with 16 years of service. He continued to work with his sons at Behan Brothers Incorporated, where he remained for over 20 years until his death. He was an active member of the community as a member of the Ancient Order of Hibernians, former member of the Board of Directors for the Boys Club, communicant at St. Augustine's Church, and supporter of Newport Rugby Football, receiving Player of the Year award named after him. Mr. Behan is survived by his wife Helen, Donahoe Behan, 12 children and their spouses, Margaret Jones, Patricia Brady, Michael J. Behan, Mary Sheehan, William Behan, Christopher Behan, Esquire, Peter Behan, Andrew Behan, David Behan, Bridget Gomes, and Dr. Catherine Behan, and Barbara Howlett, 30 grandchildren and 10 great-grandchildren. He was also the brother of the late James K. Behan Jr. and Barbara Behan Booth, and uncle to Underwood School Principal Kimberly Behan Townsend. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Do we have any public comments? Okay. No public comments. Next activity is resolutions and certificates. We have none, correct, on our off-season. Student activities, we're not in school yet, so we have none of those. Consent agenda. I'd like to pull from 5.2 the personnel actions, a request for a leave of absence from that consent agenda. We can move the rest if anybody else wants to pull anything from that agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded with the exception of the request for leave. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. The reason I asked for the request for leave to be voted on separately, we have a high school math teacher. We know mathematics is a place we desperately need highly qualified people that we struggle to fill, especially high school positions. Our contract allows for leave of absence with a reasonable request, yet here we are a couple of weeks before school starts with a request for leave from a high school mathematics teacher. From my perspective, the reason she's asked for leave isn't clear at all, but it's really not a reasonable request. We should have had this request at the beginning of the summer so we could have acted on it and sought to fill the position. So I'll move that we deny the leave of absence for Melissa Hall.
Second.
Moving second, any discussion?
We do have someone on layoff who would come back take this position. So I just want to point that out.
Because our understanding from discussing the budget earlier was that no position, so we'd have the same math program in place we had for the last 2 years, which included the intervention program, so we would have the same number of math teachers. The coming year is this year, so even recalling one, we still have the same number of math teachers. There is, great.
It would.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the FY13 budget. We had a long discussion this afternoon. We had some questions come up about the budget. Hopefully, Ms. Tracy can fill us in a little bit. One question was about the federal impact aid and what the average for the last 3 years were, since we always underestimate that and end up with more money in that category. And the other was the giant fluctuation in pension contribution. So I don't know if you were able to find in a short period of time any information on that. Oh, good. Yep, okay, that's good. That was a smaller one.
The impact aid, the average for the last 3 years was $336,817.
No.
$636,000.
Okay, thanks.
630.
Okay.
And do you want to explain what the 3 years are?
So we haven't done these school committee meetings, so you have to use the podium,
Yeah.
otherwise they can't catch it for the record.
Okay, the average for the last 3 years for impact aid was $636,817.
Okay.
And that was, 2011 was actually only $555,000. So we can increase the 13 budget to the average, which would be an increase of about $85,000. But if it turns out like 2011, we could be low again.
Yep. Okay. And the pension contribution?
The pension question, the rate for certified personnel went from 13.23% to 14.41% from 12 to 13, which is about $220,000. The non-certified rate went from 17.8 to 18.84, which is about $53,000. And there was $73,000 in overaccruals in 11, which means the pension costs were moved from 12 to 11. And at the end of 12, there was no liability because everything had been paid before June 30th. So I couldn't leave the liability on the books for the $73,000. So that makes the difference of about $350,000.
Okay, so that's why that jumped so much?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So maybe we should point out to the public how much money you're paying to people's pension now.
And total pension payment was approximately $2.7 million this year?
2.7, yep.
2.7 million
We
contributions
pay
to
into people's pensions.
Right. Dr. Shoemaker?
Could I ask the superintendent, has the rate on the impact aid changed per student, or have we had fewer students?
You know, this is like a Ouija board. I mean,
You're
every
the
year,
superintendent. I mean,
every year we don't know. As you can tell, like in 2011, we only got 550. This is an election year. We got a lot more money this year than we did the year past. So we are getting more students who are eligible, but those numbers, I believe, are 2 years past, and they won't hit next year. I don't know. It's one of those things where I don't want to be held accountable one way or another. I'm always a little bit more conservative in these numbers, but it's something that's a real roll of the dice for us.
Okay, so the committee has the option to adjust the anticipated impact aid to the average of the last 3 years, which would be $636,000, or leave it at the current $550,000, which may well underestimate the actual aid and result in a balance at the end of the year.
Is it appropriate to make a motion?
Yes.
I move that we use the average to calculate the impact aid over the last 3 years.
I second that motion. Made and seconded. Any conversations, discussions?
Mr. Chairman, so if it's not that, how are we going to come up with the $130,000?
It's actually about an $85,000, I guess, exchange. We still do have some money in the reserve budget, and we know there's fluctuations up and down. We know that there are, we were just told earlier, there are a lot more military people in the housing facilities at Fort Adams, and a lot of them have been registering for school this year, so we've never seen a number that low, 550,000, if you look back over the last 6, 8 years. Ms. Gaines?
The money that would come to us this year would not be based on this year's enrollment. Am I right?
Correct. It's on 2 years ago.
It's right.
And the federal government keeps changing the rate retroactively.
Oh,
So they'll say that they do a calculation, they'll pay you 120%. Excuse me, the federal government does a calculation, the Department of Defense and the Department of Education get all these requests, and they divvy up pots of money. If they don't use it all, when they do their first divvying, then they go back and do it again. So you can project that you're going to get 120% of what they first tell you, but some years we get less, and some years we've gotten as much as 137%.
so have they determined the rate for 2009? Do we know what that rate is? Because that's what we would get this year, the 2009 apportionment.
I don't know when they issue their award. We have not gotten a
projection of what that award would be.
right.
So, I mean, that's about the salary of and benefits of a mid-step teacher, right? So,
What about
by
you?
not, the 85,000, so by not taking that into account, we're tying our hands in terms of how much staff we can have in the school department.
Pat,
Dr. Shoemaker?
just to add to the confusion, you received a payment this summer for what year?
2007, $27,000.
Oh, so it's 2008 we're looking for.
No, in 2013, I'm looking for the base on the 2011 census, the census that was taken in the fall of 2011.
Yeah.
You get that money in 13, and then you get another part of that money in 14.
When do we get 2009?
Whenever. I mean, it was one of those things where they already told us they weren't going to give us any more money for 2007, and then we get a check in July for 2007. It really is a difficult thing to forecast, so.
Ms. Bowman?
I mean, I think the goal of trying to do this is so that we actually use all the money that we think we have and that we don't end up at the end of the year with 600, 700,000, $1 million. So I think this is a really prudent way to go about it, especially if we can put the money back into a reading teacher or math intervention, and we really go with, what, and you can only go by your best projections, so that's how we can do it.
It's moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Motion passes 6-1. Mr. Leary, against. Next discussion from this afternoon carryover was to reduce the number of third grades from 10 to 8, which still has sufficient capacity and additional 10 seats for students compared to the enrollment. Do I have a motion
So
to
moved.
do that? Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any conversation on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
So your total going in the budget right now, while we're doing this maybe? We want to do a running total?
I guess the question that I would know is reducing by 2 third-grade teachers, what that number actually is, or some round ballpark of that number.
We had estimated it would be about 130, I believe.
Correct, 120.
2 positions.
120.
Yeah.
2 positions.
Right, because,
No, just those 2, we just removed those 2 positions.
just those two,
Total for those 2.
right.
60,000 per person.
Yeah, because part of that deals with the fact that we have an individual who's a top step person who will move into a kindergarten position that now becomes open, which we would have had to fill at a lower at a lower step had that been the case.
Okay?
So what's your best guess about net for the two would be about what?
120.
120.
Okay.
Plus, maybe a little more,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but
So now we're at 200,000.
sort of that, because don't forget, we're moving folks around,
Right.
and so it's not two full positions, because the kindergarten is now not, not a first step kindergarten.
So one of those third grade teachers will go to
Well,
kindergarten?
probably the least senior certified individual with early childhood would have to move to that position.
Okay.
Probably be a top step or something like that. I mean, these things are fairly imprecise as you see what the salary and benefits are there. They're 19 and change.
Okay, so we're about $200,000. There was a discussion about the reduction in the number of reading teachers due to reduction in federal aid, Title I aid, and a discussion about potential of adding one back, so that, I guess I'm always a little unclear on the numbers, we would have gone from 12 to 9 reading teachers, and this would put us back to 10?
I believe so,
Or is
yes.
So moved.
Is that right?
Second,
So the motion is to add one additional reading teacher from our operating budget. Moved and seconded, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would think if, first of all, I can't support that because this is money from the federal government, and you're going to put local funds to supplant federal government money, so I can't support that. But if you were going to support that, I would think that you might want to look at adding a math specialist, because you have 2 of those in the federal side, and you have, as you said, 9 reading teachers. So it seems to me if you're going to do that, you would want to add a math person, where our math scores are low in high school, needing that stuff, and everybody needing that along the way. So I would seriously think about that, but again, you're taking federal money that's been eliminated and adding local funds to circumvent that, which I am not a fan of.
Mr. Phelan?
Dr. Ambrosi, would that be a direct reading teacher?
You know my philosophical orientation on reading, instruction, and
But still,
support.
would that be a direct reading teacher? At least.
Reading teachers should have direct services as their primary, but that is a philosophical discussion that's been on the table for at least God knows how many years with the co-teaching model.
So you really
I've never been a fan, and I don't think I'm surprising anybody when I tell them that I'm not a fan. I like direct service.
All right, so you can't really say it will or won't be? I have an idea.
Well, I mean, I think that that's a discussion as to how the model best works. As I said, we've got a lot of direct service for the students, and I think that's the most effective way to teach reading, but it's my own opinion.
Dr. Shoemaker?
Mr. Leary brings up a good point, and that is, should we be looking at math instructors? I want to support the current measure, but I also would like to just point out maybe in the fall we have a comprehensive review of all the special teachers and versus what the needs are. We have the new Northwest examination, which tells you how many kids are, how many years behind, maybe 2 or 3 years behind, and identify that classroom that has a cluster of kids 2 or 3 years behind, and put maybe a math teacher in there, or maybe it's going to be a reading teacher. We need to look at the whole picture rather than just.
And I agree. I think that the best time to do that is when they move in. We move into the new Pell School to have a comprehensive program of reading and math starting in first grade.
Mrs. Gaines?
we're talking about adding a reading teacher, and there has been considerable discussion among us about direct services.
Right.
And it's my feeling that we're putting back a reading teacher to help those students who need reading help, who are below grade level. Why is that not direct service?
I think there's, what what has been discussed is the fact that there is a co-teaching model where the reading teacher goes into the classroom and teaches with the science or social studies teacher.
That's not what I'm supporting.
Okay.
Well, then we get Dr. Fry up there and change the program for the vote.
Dr. Fry, you want to address this, please? You want to clarify this for me?
Sure. Can you ask your question again?
Well, I'm concerned about those students who are below grade level and need direct reading assistance. And that's what I'm supporting in putting back a reading teacher to do that work.
Okay, so the reading teachers, all of our students that are reading below grade level will have a PLP. They have a personal literacy plan that is directed towards specific skills and strategies that their teacher or reading teacher can use to help them. Their progress monitored, and then the students are either targeted, meaning that they're below grade level but not significantly, or intensive, meaning that that gap is larger. The students that have the largest gaps are the students that are served by the reading teachers. The students that are targeted, that have smaller gaps, could be seen by a reading teacher, say at TMS, if they're in the targeted intervention program, along with other teachers. At the elementary school, they get direct service. They meet with the reading teacher. The reading teacher also does provide some coaching for classroom teachers to help them address students. And they help in many other ways in the school, but their primary purpose is really to service those students with direct instruction. And at the high school, they have reading classes as well. Does that?
Yeah. Now my question is, if we vote to add back one reading teacher, do we have to designate what level that teacher goes to?
That would be at the elementary level. That would be my
And that's
recommendation.
direct service?
That would be direct service.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bowen?
Now I got so involved in that conversation.
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, do her.
Yep.
I think the, talking about the direct service is important too, and I agree with Mr. Leary that it would be, in a, ideal world, we would have more math specialists also. But when you have the choice, everything that we do involves reading. And that's the first skill, the first ability that our youngsters have to work on. So I would say the direct service reading is the highest priority.
Thank you.
Now,
Mrs. Bowen?
What I was going to address with what Mr. Leary said is that I think we have to take a really hard look at the fact, though, that I think we have support services in elementary for math, and we have it at the high school, but we don't have anything at the middle school right now as a math interventionist. So I think that if there's ever a place we need to look, it's at the middle school, putting something in. And if we had leftover money tonight, I'd be all in favor of allocating it in that direction.
Thank you. I share Mr. Leary's concerns about the distribution of our intervention specialists. That really is lopsided, and we know students starting in 2014 have to score at least a partially proficient on a NECAP exam. We know half of the students at Rogers would fail that exam and not be able to graduate. We're not preparing students for careers in math and science, which is where the job market is now and it will be in the future. So we really need to take a hard look at what are we doing at the elementary, middle school, and high school to get these kids prepared for rigorous AP courses in college and careers in those areas. So I guess I'm in favor of adding the reading teacher at this point, but we do need to take a serious look. I know we've changed significantly plans for mathematics next year to the point where kids will get twice as much instructional time in mathematics in elementary school. That should help. Ms. Gaines?
Why can't we do both?
Yeah.
Probably our bankroll's not big enough. I'm just now getting a little nervous here, folks.
Well, let's see where we wind up. If we have, let's see where we wind up at the end of
Okay,
this.
so
And if-
the motion is to add a reading teacher at the elementary level. It's been made and seconded, I believe. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All
Oh, I'm
opposed?
sorry, nay.
Probably puts back
Get
6.
back, pay attention, huh?
So you're against
So
it?
that now
Yeah.
took away from us.
Because of federal
Yeah.
funds.
Say 60?
Yeah, say 60.
All right, 9140.
So So you're at 90,000 now. No, you're 111,000 for a reading teacher going back in.
No.
Oh, you got that because it's going to be somebody else.
Just because of the way the job's moving
Right.
around.
So let's say it's
Um,
70 anyways.
Are there any other actions relative to the budget?
I'd like to introduce the 1% for the capital improvement.
So the
We are
cap-
presently at 0.5% in our budget. I would like to make that go from 0.5% to 1%, which has been our budget since the time. I've mistakenly voted to make that a 0.5% last time around, and as I said earlier today, the people that let Thompson and these other schools get in total disrepair, shame on them for taking that money out and not doing it. And I just did the same thing 2 months ago in our last meeting, to making it from 1% down to 0.5%. So I want to make a motion to stall that back to 1% for the capital improvement fund,
The
which
motion
will
is
go toward
to
Rogers.
increase from $180,000 to $360,000 the capital improvement fund.
And where would that leave
Where's it
us
coming
where we are?
Wait, what?
I said, where would that leave us in terms of where we?
Around zero, I think.
Oh, you have
Oh, okay, I just
minus
want
money.
to make sure that.
Well, you get Thompson to
Excuse
discuss
me.
it.
Minus 35.
And we still have additional funds in our reserve balance that we've not transferred in yet. Right. Okay. Hey, Ms. Bowen?
I think the only problem, Mr. Clerk.
So that was a motion, right, Mr. Lee?
Yes.
So moved, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion? Ms. Bowen?
I mean, the only problem I have with that is that, to think about the $400,000, I mean, like, we have 180, what we're going to put in right now, right? And we're going to move it, double that to 360?
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay, so if, with that 180, we could put 2 math intervention specialists over it, you know, and I understand what you're saying, Mr. Leary, but how big do we let that fund get? I mean, if we need a capital improvement, you know, like, because we can look down the road and maybe not see some unforeseen things, but we know we have to redo the locker room, we don't know what that's going to cost. I mean, I would rather see that money right now going into math intervention people than to be put in an account more than 0.5%.
I think I agree. I know I agree.
Mrs. Gaines, any other comments? Mr. Phelan?
I think it should be put back to the 1%, because that's the way it was done probably in 1994, and that's what they put a motion for that. And we did let the schools go down, and Rogers, since it's going to be the older school, needs a lot of work, and if we don't keep up with it, it's going to just fall apart if we just keep doing it.
Mr. Kelly?
Mrs. Gaines?
I think there is some allotment in this budget for capital improvement that is not included in the 0.5%. Am I right, Mr. Phelan? I mean, Mr.
Fagan?
No, Fagan. I know who you are.
Are you talking about the funds that are potentially designated for Pell?
Oh, no, not for Pell. Aren't we doing something at Rogers?
Thompson.
Thompson?
Thompson, we are, and there is
Maintenance.
a fund balance dedicated for Thompson, is $170,000.
Once,
Okay.
170 at Thompson and 419 for Pell. So, Ms. Fagan, when I asked that question, how many square feet of roof does Rogers have, roughly?
160,000?
How much have we worked on so far?
Well, we're working on it all constantly. It's a progress.
That's the problem.
Totally replaced, probably quarter of that amount.
So we got to work on another 140 square feet of roof. It needs to be done. All I can say is that you guys vote how you vote, but the people of the past that did this, let these schools fall into repair, and if you're going to be that person to vote that way, remember that, it ain't going to be my vote.
Mr. Chair.
I'm not going to let the schools fall into disrepair.
Mr. Phelan?
If you walk around Rogers right now, you can see where the painting should be done.
Right.
The place is starting to look worn, and needlessly, I mean, realistically, you could just
Sure.
get someone out there to do
Right.
something. We're ignoring that. That's a little thing. Just imagine what the big things that we just ignore.
You
Yeah,
don't get
I-
much done with 160,000.
I think 180, because I made a
180,
mistake.
right.
I made a mistake there, okay.
I just read that paper again, you're right.
Yeah, you read my,
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's sufficient to have the 170 and the 180, and then whatever we have
How much is in it?
available for Pell, I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not out of the woods yet on that one. But even if we need all of the 419, we still have, between Rogers and Thompson, we still have 1%.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Phelan?
the Thompson should be left for Thompson.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I wouldn't count that for anything, because that's
it's-
for, because you said that would equal to 1%.
But that's
That's
part of our,
capital
Yeah, but realistically, that came from the bond, am I correctly, or, so
But
why
it's-
not just keep it there so when Thompson needs it, we have it, so we can get the jobs done immediately
Like a steps.
and start, fixing this school. I mean, we're
Because we
we
need
missed
to have
opportunity, because
specialists.
we're gonna do the same thing next year that we're doing now if we don't put the 1.5% in.
And just to be
and
clear, so in
keep going.
1997, the school committee passed a resolution that they would on an annual basis dedicate 1% of their operating budget to capital improvement projects to maintain the schools. And that was part of the whole getting Thompson bond passed, I believe, also. We're going to
Correct.
keep these buildings up in the future.
Absolutely.
That was my, yeah.
That was a big
my-
part, Ms. Kelly.
and
I'm just thinking that in the last 10 years, I would say we've done a very decent job toward upkeep of the buildings. And it might be because of that 1% set aside. But I think our buildings are in pretty good shape. I've never been on Rogers' roof, so I don't know. But I think if we could maybe split the baby here, and instead of going to 1 full percent, go to 3/4 and get that math specialist.
So
There's other ways.
are you making a motion to amend the motion?
Well,
Because of my
that was
motion.
just a suggestion. I don't
Yeah,
know
well,
if
my
there's any
motion first,
support.
hold on.
Right.
I think I have a way to solve that. So what we do is, at the end here, I'd love to see a math intervention specialist. So we get the math
That's what
intervention,
Thompson
and anything
do that.
that's left that we've come up with tonight goes towards the capital. Like, we could make the motion to read that way, so whatever we have,
I like my motion voted on, and not to amend it.
okay,
I want to be voted on as it is.
all right.
You can amend it any way you want afterwards.
And we'll point out, last year we
And I want
allocated
everybody's name
$0
voted in the record,
to,
please, in the minutes. I want everybody's name, how they voted in the minutes.
Wait a minute.
Go forward.
You mean we can't,
So, motion's been made and seconded, discussed. Any other discussion on that? All in favor of increasing from $180,000 to $360,000 capital improvement budget allocation?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails,
Was the vote?
3 to 4.
Get the names, please, in the record, so we can know.
Mr. Phelan, Mr. Kelly, and Mr. Leary in favor?
History repeats itself.
Okay.
Okay, now make a motion.
Now,
No.
where would 3/4 of put us?
well, at a half of 180,
135.
270? 270?
Yeah, 270, exactly.
See, I didn't even have to use the calculator.
270, I don't do
is that
that.
where it is?
Two,
No, just what? Gotta wait till my business.
huh? 55,000. We have
Left.
left?
If you do 270.
That's why.
Okay, that's
Plus-
not enough.
Plus how much in the
Is that
reserve
enough?
balance?
You got Thompson, you
Wait, stop.
got ALP to deal with.
158. So it would be, we'd say 45 plus 150, it'd be about $200,000.
Oh, we could get a math specialist with that.
Yeah, what's the,
We could get a math specialist with that, right?
Any other,
That feeling like-
any other motions for modifications to the, Ms. Bowen?
I'm going to move that we put a math intervention specialist at Thompson Middle School, and that if there's any other money left this evening that we've come up with, that gets moved into the capital improvement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So I have a question about that. My understanding is we have 2 math interventionists at the elementary level. We put one in place at the high school level that I think, based on all our conversations, is still in place. And we don't have any at the middle school right now.
this way is it going?
And this one would be at the middle school, right?
So I guess what I don't, so if we did that, I guess there's a whole programming issue of what time do you use, how do you get the kids out of class?
I have no clue how
understand.
that's going to work at this point in time, with just one person. I
Just
don't
do
know.
Thompson, talk about ALP.
I would,
Pat, we're talking about a comprehensive plan, and now we're going,
yeah.
putting in little individuals. I'd rather see this vote deferred about putting, and maybe we need three. Maybe we need three math specialists at Thompson rather than just one. I'd rather see us look at the problem, identify the needs for the kids, and talk to the principal and teachers there before we make this move.
I mean, right now, we could implement something at the elementary school because we've got the model there. I just don't know how, I think it's a great idea, I just don't know how the model will work.
So we do have two interventions at the
Correct.
elementary level.
Correct.
So the motion's been made and seconded. If we could withdraw it to a future
All right,
meeting,
we can-
to give us a little more time, as Dr. Schmidt suggested, to look at.
So I need to make a motion to
Table-
move that we
table it.
table this
Table,
motion.
yeah.
But I guess we shouldn't table it. 'cause-
No, you can table it.
It's
I mean,
way
table-
back.
But tabling
Table
means
it
you're
to
going to
the
go back
October
to...
meeting,
Table it to the October meeting.
okay?
Yeah.
Move the table to the October meeting. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so we'll take that one up at a future date when we get a more comprehensive look
You'll
at
have
the
all the
math
information,
instruction
good.
strategies. Okay, any other actions on approval of the budget?
What about the Thompson?
Thompson, so,
There's two things out there.
there's two things at Thompson that do relate to the budget. One option was implementation of a split cluster between 6th and 8th grade. The other was implementation of a 6th grade general education model rather than the specialized model that's in place now. So I don't know if anybody wants to make a motion on either of those items.
I'll make a motion on the second one.
Make a motion to implement the 6th grade generalist instruction model, which would result in requiring 2 less teachers, I think, in the 6th grade level at this point in time, with 143 students enrolled.
Was that,
Mrs. Gaines?
is that what Mr. Crowley addressed in the previous meeting? Or is this something different?
This is what Jack did.
This, you know, we do things and then we don't do other things. This will be very difficult to do given the decision that you made earlier in terms of layoffs. So I don't know how you would go with this model. The model would be to have 3 two-member teams in the 6th grade. What the deficit would be you wouldn't have specialists that you have now in terms of math and science, social studies, and English. So that's basically the difference between the two.
And the most likely scenario is you wouldn't have a math and science teacher. You would
No, you
math
would
and
not,
science.
no, you would not have a math, you wouldn't have a math or science teacher.
Okay.
But it would impact on those people who are certified only as secondary folks. They would have to move someplace else, and it would be only elementary school certified folks there. So that has implications on the other decision that was made, so I really can't recommend that at this point in time.
Okay, so a motion to implement the 6th grade alternate teaming model of 2 classes per team, 6 teachers in total. Mr., any other comments on that?
I'm a little confused now on this. You had recommended that earlier.
I had said that that's an option that I preferred over the other model.
Split cluster.
Right.
Over the split cluster.
Yeah.
But I did point out the two variables, the variable about the fact that you're not going to have a math person or a science or an English person, so you'd have to move the people out of the 6th grade who are only secondary certified. You'd have to move people into 6th grade who are elementary school generalists. Then 2 of them one would teach math and science, the other would teach social studies and English. And as I said before, this became available to the district as a result of the changes in the certification that RIDE enacted in January.
Okay.
So we don't make any changes at Thompson. We're not going to recommend any changes at the ALP at Rogers, which is a disaster. There's no attendance, nothing like that. We're continuing keeping staff going, and this is why we have the highest per pupil cost in the state of Mass.
So we have a motion to go to a two-teacher teaming model in 6th grade at an elementary instruction level, or model.
Not seconded.
Is it seconded?
No, it isn't, I only have
Okay,
Fannie.
do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's made and seconded for conversation purposes. I think we've talked about the need for rigorous math and science instruction. I understand that if we had dual certified teachers, one certified in math and science and one certified in English and social studies, this would work very well. We don't have dual certified teachers, highly qualified teachers in the 6th grade to implement that. So
We don't have them anywhere in the
I
district.
unfortunately can't support this, although I do see the highest cost per pupil. Hopefully that's coming down a little bit next time Ride ever gets around to running those numbers again, but I just can't support this on an educational basis.
So when, I'm a little confused again. I thought that that this was, you said by state law they could do this now?
Right. You can do it at 6th grade.
Right, because you would consider them
Elementary
elementary
generalists.
students.
Yes.
The elementary teacher then
Right.
teaches math, science,
So you
social studies,
can't
and
do it.
English. And we know how great our math outcomes in elementary school have been so far. That's why we're trying to double the time and have math interventionists at that level. I just don't see it as sending a message of rigorous instruction and preparation for high school at the middle school level. So you can do it.
It is done
But
in
it's
West
not-
Warwick. And they've been doing it for like 10 or 15 years in grade 6. And Jack already met with the superintendent of West Warwick. The two teachers in 6th grade, one teaches math and science, and the other teaches social studies and English. And they've been doing it for, I want to say, 15 years.
Mrs. Gaines.
I don't want to be disparaging, but West Warwick scores are nothing to write home about.
Mrs. Gaines, tell us about
But
ours.
on the,
Tell us about ours, our schools, Mrs. Gaines.
I lost my point.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other, Dr. Shoemaker?
Many of you weren't here earlier in the early meeting, and Mr. Crowley, the principal at Thompson, spoke to us about teaming and alternatives to teaming, and he strongly recommended we sort of stay at the status quo, don't make any changes at this point until we've had a little chance to study it a little bit more, and I'm not so sure even after further study he would even recommend a change. So I would vote against this motion.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this? Okay, Dr. Flowers.
I think in view of looking at the date and that the beginning of the school year is rapidly approaching, I wonder the fairness of putting this on people now who, I'm sure, have planned a big chunk of their year already. Yeah, our scores should be better, but I think there are many factors that leading up to the scores, and the teachers certainly are not the factor.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor of moving to a two-teacher teaming model in 6th grade for the coming school year?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails 2-5. Okay, any other items related to the budget?
I move approval of the entire budget.
Approval of the budget with the modified.
As modified.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2. I'd like to ask the school committee to consider allowing us to move one discussion item forward, Quidnick Island Mentoring Program volunteer opportunities. I know Nicole has joined us this evening, and I probably should have moved this ahead a little earlier, but I don't want to ask you to stay all night with us. So, yeah, please. For people that aren't familiar, Quidnick Island Mentoring Program has been involved in our schools for how many years now?
Since 2003.
2003, and Nicole will tell us about it, but I am very impressed with the outcomes that are a result of this mentoring program. And when we look at schools, a priority school like Sullivan School, we probably need 50 or 80 more volunteer mentors there. And Nicole can talk about it, and perhaps the audience can consider donating an hour of their time for a great cause.
Well, my name is Nicole Lewis, and I am the program coordinator for the Aquidneck Island Mentor Program, which is a site-based one-to-one mentor program operating in the public schools of Newport, Middletown, and Portsmouth. We define mentoring as a long-term guidance and support of a positive, caring, well-trained adult. Students who have mentors are 52% less to skip school, 46% less likely to use illegal drugs, 27% less likely to start drinking alcohol. We began in 2003 as a pilot program at Rogers High School, started by an AmeriCorps member. In our 2011-2012 school year, we started with 27 returning mentors. I think our longest standing pair has been together about 5 years. We ended the year with 51 mentors and 60 students being served. Our program goal of 10% increase was exceeded, having an 18% increase in mentors and a 40% increase in students served. Each school had a kickoff at the beginning of the year where mentors are reunited with their students. It's my favorite part, to see them after they've been apart all summer. They had a holiday party where, again, we bring them all together and we just celebrate being together. And an end-of-year activity. And I also had 2 coffee hours where I invited all of the mentors, all of the parents, and all of the teachers and school staff to come together without the students so that they can talk about how we can collaborate and discuss what needs to be done. And I'd like to say thank you to Panera Bread because they gave us the space and free coffee for that both times. I compile an end-of-year report at the end of every school year, and the results, 100% of the kids surveyed said they are happier because they have a mentor. 86% of the kids indicated that the mentor helps them do better in school, and for our program here in Aquidneck Island, that's not their objective. They're just there to support the student, but it turns out that it helps them in their schooling. I have a quote from one of the students that says, "Math is my favorite thing now because my mentor helps me." There was a 4th grade boy. Our mentors come from all walks of life. They're students and business owners and military, etc. And they reported that 100% satisfied with their match, and 100% of them would recommend being a mentor to a friend or relative. And I have a couple of mentor quotes. "Seeing her develop trust and finally laugh spontaneously has been the best part of the experience for me." And a second mentor, "I feel pride as I see him grow up and spend less time in the dean's office because of behavior problems." 100% of the teachers that answered our survey and the guidance department also rated Aquidneck Island Mentor Program as successful. I have one teacher quote, "Mentoring helps students, keeps them in school, and helps them grow up with a sense of caring, trust, and positive life opportunities." And finally, we also surveyed the parents, and 100% of them rated the overall success of the program successful. And my 2 favorite parent quotes, "Because of her mentor, she wants to do her work and looks forward to school." And that's a parent of a 1st grader. And then, "I love how her mentor opened her up to want to learn," a parent of a 2nd grader. And there was one more that I saw that the parent was very impressed that the math scores, test scores had improved for their student. So I brought a couple of year-end reports if anybody would like to take a peek at one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
And hi, I'm Joanne Schofield. I'm president and COO of the Rhode Island Mentoring Partnership. And you know, with all of your discussions about fiscal constraints and all of those things, we just got devastating news through federal government. They provide flow-through funding to Rhode Island Public Safety, who in turn RFP'd it out to a number of nonprofits. And the Aquidneck Island Mentor Program was a recipient of a grant of $39,982 for like the last 6 years. So that's really enabled us to do our work here on the island. Unfortunately, due to federal budget cuts, that whole RFP process has been eliminated. So that's devastating to us. We are committed to the program. We've gotten little bits of patchwork kind of funding coming together, but right now we're going from a budget of over $40,000 down to a budget of about $15,000 to support this program. So I am asking and imploring all of you not only to volunteer as mentors, because goodness knows our kids need it, but to really think about any opportunities that you may know of for funding from community-based organizations or anything that you can know or think of that could really help us, because Nicole does a phenomenal job. Her face lights up in every situation when she's dealing with the kids, she's dealing with a mentor, she's dealing with school staff. And I just find it so important and so impressive that she's been able to do everything she has been. And I would think it would be a shame to have her have to step back from that role and not serve the kids, because the kids, it all ends with them. It starts with them and it ends with them, and they're the ones that are benefiting from the program. So I ask each of you to step forward in whatever capacity you can, whether it's to be a mentor, to help us out with funding. Give me a call. I'd be glad to talk to you, to go, if you have a friend with a lot of money, we can go and talk to them, whatever it takes. We want to make this work, and we need your help to make that happen.
Oh, we have public funds to give up.
That's a very good plea. I actually am going to finish this term on the school committee, not be on the school committee anymore, so I'm going to have some more time, so my wife and I are going to talk to Nicole about volunteering. But of course, it does take some money to make these things work. And I have to tell you, this program, the Quinnipiac Island Mentoring and the Martin Luther King Center, those are two programs, when you look at them, they can very quickly tell you the impact and quantify the impact they're having on the kids every day. And that's the place the money should be spent.
Nicole, see if you can get on Jeffrey Osborne's list.
Yeah.
Okay? He made a plea today for expanding his charity to other nonprofits. I'm serious, yeah. They raised a lot of money.
And I will be running a half marathon to raise money for AIM in October, so.
Good for you.
We'll pledge.
I'll pledge.
We'll pledge.
Thank you.
We'll cheer you on.
Mr. Kelly.
Thank you very much, Dr. Flowers.
I know Nicole because it's through the AIM program. The young lady I mentor, she'll be going into 6th grade this year at Thompson, and we've known one another now since she was in 2nd grade at Cary School. And I remember when she was transferred to Underwood, she said, "I'll get you the directions on how to drive there." I said, "Don't worry, the car goes automatically." Yeah. And I did have one young lady the year before that, so I've been firsthand knowledge of the Quinnipiac Island Mentoring Program, and I recommend it to anyone. It is rewarding, it really is, and you get to know these kiddies, really one-on-one, and building that trust is the important point too, and the cooperation from faculty and principal. Again, this has been at Cary and then Underwood and then at Thompson. It is tremendous. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the great work. Okay. I guess back to the boring part of the agenda. That was the fun part. The good news part. Next, item 6.2 is approval of a modified teaming model for Thompson Middle School for 2012-13 school year. I think this is probably overcome by earlier conversations and events. What we did discuss was formation of a team to investigate in the coming months an alternative model for the following school year. Right. So I guess I would recommend that we not take any action or motion on item 6.2 at this point in time, unless somebody wants to.
I don't want to.
All right, Mr. Phelan?
Well, just approve the model for Thompson Middle School.
I'll second.
So the motion is to implement the split teaming model for Thompson Middle School, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
No, wait, what is split?
That's well, the one that would, the alternate teaming model that's been discussed is 4 teachers, 2 classrooms of 6th graders, 2 classrooms of 8th graders rotating around. So the complications that Mr. Crowley discussed with us of all the special times and where the kids are and mixing the kids in the 5th and 6th and 8th grade because of class gym size and gym schedules and things of that nature.
So he recommended against this.
That's
Yes.
correct. That's correct.
So,
Mr. Chairman, I will be supporting this because if you think about it, I think it's 29 kids or 25 kids extra for 4 teachers. And that's been going on for the last 3 years at Thompson. That's a $400,000 savings each year that we could have done something in the old contract, never mind now. I think to continue this continues without obviously saying that we're the highest per pupil cost in the state. And these are some of the reasons that we have it. And I will support changing the model because of that.
Okay. Any comments, Mrs. Bowling?
Although I'm very supportive of the fact that the $400,000 is a lot to be committing, to keeping this model going. I will say that we haven't done enough this year to get it going, and next year, hopefully they will come up with a new teaming model, because I think we're gonna have a structural deficit of over $1 million next year. And so, next year, next year, we're gonna be needing to really, dig deeper unless we end up getting a lot more money from the city, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? Mrs. Gaines?
I will not support this motion, because I will support the recommendation of the principal, who does not think that this particular arrangement would be the best for the kids at Thompson.
Thank you. Any other discussions? So we have a motion seconded. All in favor? All in favor?
Aye, okay. Fall asleep here.
All opposed? Motion fails, 2 votes to 5. Next item is approval of a modification to a school committee policy related to staff attendance. I guess we had a conversation about this probably at a June school committee meeting about whether some more formal method of keeping track of staff attendance and tardiness in particular was necessary. We did ask for some data on that. We were not able to find accurate data as required by our policy, but we were told that a number of schools, there were a number of staff members that there are tardiness issues with. So this recommendation simply adds a sentence to the existing policy, which would be to require the principals to maintain reliable and auditable daily attendance records. Right now, they're required to maintain accurate records. That's not what's happening right now. How this gets implemented, it could be sign-in sheets, it could be a time clock, it could be a swipe badge. That's a detail for the administration to figure out. But I think when we ask for attendance records, we should be able to get attendance records. And we're not able to do that at this point.
That's what we got last week.
That's right.
That was horrible.
So we have a motion to approve modification of school committee staff attendance policy number 4720 to include a requirement for maintenance of reliable and auditable daily attendance records. Been moved. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, I know we've been going on about this now for a few weeks, and as it says, the accurate records will be kept. The superintendent sent us the data that there are, I guess, a handful of people, not that there should be any, but there's a handful of people with some sort of a problem. From my vantage point, I think this is an administrative issue. We have the policy. We can keep adding on to policies, but if they're not enforced or referred to, and sometimes if you just let people know what the policies say, they will step forward. I believe that we've reached the point where the principals or whoever is supervising these individuals just really have to deal one-on-one with them and say, this is a problem, and solve it. I do not see where there is a need to amend the policy at this particular point.
Thank you. Mrs. Gaines?
As I read this, I think the last sentence is the only new language in this. The superintendent shall establish a mechanism.
This has been,
It's the old one.
this is the old one. This is what's in
Okay,
existence
what's the
now.
new one?
No.
The new one is
No,
simply
it has not
to
been-
add a
no,
sentence
it's
to
not.
that,
Yeah, to require the principals to maintain reliable and auditable daily attendance records.
to the first paragraph. The last sentence, that will become the last sentence of the first paragraph.
But the
Any other
policy
discussions?
is written as it is.
Okay. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye, I'm seeing.
All opposed? I don't know, who voted for it?
I did.
Everybody but Flowers.
Okay, motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approve the removal of the telephone barriers on Wickham Road, Rogers High School, in replacement with safer and more attractive vehicle barriers. I think Mr. Fagan's going to talk to us. We've been contacted, had discussions with a number of neighbors, and I think if you drive by, those things are eyesores that have been there for probably 30 years. They're tumbling off their holding pylons. They get put back on occasionally. Eventually, they're going to fall on somebody and hurt them. So I think we need to do something about these.
I believe you have a memo on the subject in front of you. There's approximately 75 barrier poles of about, average of about 13 feet in length. And they sit on approximately 80 pole stubs that are left. This was a project, Mr. Kelly's right, it dates back to 1986 or so. And it was a reaction to a time when some cars got onto the front lawn and did some wheelies and did some damage to the grass in front of the library. They have definitely outlived their usefulness. We got some help on this. As Mr. Kelly said, a lot of neighbors have been very good about getting involved in this. Also, Scott Wheeler from the city of Newport, the tree warden, has provided much input on this subject. Lee Rice, the street supervisor, has also been giving his input on it. And National Grid checked it, and they had actually the best outlet to get rid of these poles. They take their poles because they're not something you can take to a regular landfill. They're coated with creosote, so they're considered somewhat of hazardous waste. Their outlet, where they take all their poles, was Northern Tree Service in Palmer, Massachusetts. We could get rid of them for $155 a ton. They'll be weighed. We can ballpark it. We can get pretty close, but not, perfect. So several people have checked in on this estimate, and they think we're right on it. We're thinking between $2,500 and $3,000 for the removal of these poles. Part of my memo does address when we pull the stubs, what to put back in that area for a fill, but with the recent work that's going on at Rogers, we have plenty of fill material that we can fill up these holes, so that's alleviated one of the expenses. What would have to be, if we decided to go forward with this, settle tonight, would be what, if anything, would go back as their replacement. If you go out there, you can see there are several areas.
You're on the lawn right now, back here.
Probably.
Doing wheelies on the soccer field.
Can you hear them out there now?
There are several areas in the front of Rogers. This is where they're obviously the most unattractive, where you can get on the property if you chose that is no longer protected. There is some thought, myself being one of the included, that maybe we could just remove them and see where we go from there without any sort of investment into another border. Funding be where it was. I think this is an idea we could try. Scott Wheeler agrees with me. He says we have a chain link fence protecting the track and back, and he goes, that's basically the soccer field, your most valuable piece of real estate field there. You wouldn't want damaged. Of course, we don't want no damage to the front of the building, the lawn in front either. But we could strategically buy, it's been suggested, some boulders and put them at various locations. I did check a local materials yard. The cheapest boulder they had went for $150. I just did a ballpark look at what Ballard Park across the street and the other neighbor had. They have about 50 boulders, a smaller boulder than the one that the local material yard had, protecting their property, and we would need about 100 if we wanted to protect the whole property. So I'm thinking it'd be quite an investment. Could potentially be, $4,000 to $5,000 just for the materials, never mind the labor and placing them and transporting them to the site. So that's where we are on the topic. I don't know. I think we want to get rid of I'm recommending we get rid of the poles, but I don't know if everyone has a different recommendation on what should go back there.
I think everybody does have a different recommendation.
Mrs. Gaines?
I like the idea of the boulders. What about the quarry over here? Check.
We're going to go pick them up ourselves.
Yeah, that's it.
Down at the edge of
there's-
Ledge Road, there's
Go around
plenty.
the drive.
There's plenty
Yeah.
of rocks around Newport,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
Everyone bring them.
$150 per boulder is not that bad. I don't know why you think we need 100.
Why would we need 100?
Well,
We weren't talking-
all I did was look at the two properties across the street, and I saw how they placed them to stop a car from gaining access to the property.
Okay.
And if there's about 50 small boulders over there, and just an eye look at it, we have about twice the area in front we'd like to protect. And that's where I came with the figure of 100. Now, we don't have to do it that way.
Put a little more space between them, just so a car can't get through.
And that's how the ones over there are placed.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary.
I got a question, Mr. Fagan. Why can't they drill those things together, they stay together?
They
Why
rock.
can't you put a bolt in them, and they fall apart, and the top falls off? Can't they?
Well, I think, Mr. Leary, they would donate, they had used their useful life that the utility gave them to us back 25 years ago. So they're in such poor, rotted condition that they're going to continually be a problem. We could address them again, but they really need to go. They're an eyesore.
Dr. Shoemaker.
Well, what about a natural thing like a hedge? What are the costs and will it work?
Scott Wheeler, the tree warden, has recently planted 5 new trees out there. He figures, each season when he gets some money, he's going to put a few more trees out there.
I was thinking of a hedge.
A hedge.
Capital improvement fund, people.
I don't know the costing on a hedge.
$90,000 for the privet.
Right
Oh,
up
you
there.
go for Rogers, you just could have done that.
Okay.
But you want something that people can't knock down and...
All right, thank you. So I guess maybe we'll split this into 2 motions, or just one for now. So I'll make a motion that we approve the removal of the telephone pole barriers at Rogers High School.
Second.
Move and second. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? So we'll get rid of those. And probably we can defer to a later point in time, because the boulders are something I think just buy and put in place. So
Yeah,
we can think about that a little bit.
I was big for the boulders, but I don't know the cost.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful of cars going on lawn during functions, though.
I understand that. That's why I'm more in favor of the boulders.
Well, the bowlers are a big nightmare for the city of Newport right now, especially on Ocean Drive.
I don't know what else.
They're putting them out in the roads on public property, and people riding bikes have been having problems because they can't move into the cars, no room. So technically, the city owns 5 or 6 feet into
Right.
everybody's property, like across from Gooseberry Beach. That guy put rocks all across the pond, where if a car came close to you, you could take your bike and go on the grass there. Now it's blocked off by boulders. And all around the drive, you see them in people's houses on the city
They
land.
need to move them back a little bit.
It's actually by 5, 6
from-
feet, yeah. So I mean, that's the city land. They shouldn't allow them to do it. I was here, I wouldn't allow them.
All right, so we can take that up at a future meeting. Next item is approval of the addition of child and adult care food program to the offerings of the Newport Food Service Program. Mrs. Boland, I think, is going to discuss this.
Yeah, I'm really fortunate tonight that we have 2 of the members from Chartwell's here to answer any questions that anybody might have. But this is something that became available to us this year, and it was authorized through the Healthy Hunger-Free Child Act of 2010. And this is a program that we want everyone to consider adopting, and it'll enhance our already in place snack program that we have after school. This is actually going to be, it's a meal. We call it a dinner, and it's going to be, the government subsidizes it to the tune of $2.80, you might have to come up with, $2.86 a meal, instead of the reimbursement that we're getting right now for the after-school snack, which is about 78 cents, and it barely covers the snack, because in the snack we have to offer a fresh fruit or vegetable, and we have to offer one other item that meets the healthy requirements. With this program, the intention of this is to offer a really hearty, call it a dinner, but what it might look like would be a bagel, and inside that bagel might be 2 ounces of a protein, and then you would just have to add, you already have been serving the fruit or the vegetables, so you'd have to add a vegetable, fruit, and you would add the milk. And this has been a big problem this last year in the after-school program, because we didn't have any kind of a liquid to offer the kids. So at each of these schools, they had to, where they would offer water. We were trying to find, ways to offer water to them. So this is really a win-win situation for our kids in here in Newport to be offered this. The increased cost, you all got the background information. There's going to be a little bit of increased cost. I think Chartwell says that it's going to be about $1.80 they figure per, I think that was your estimate, $1.80 per meal. That's with labor included. And we would end up, wouldn't say making, we would have a buffer in the system then, because we would probably be, bringing in, not using $1 of that every meal that we got reimbursed for. It's open to all kids who get an after-school snack at Cogshell right now, Sullivan, Cranston Calvert, and TMS. We're not sure if Rogers can be included. The problem was that Rogers hadn't met that 50%, that's the threshold you need to do for free and reduced. They have met it now, so we have to see if we can get, or if they also qualify for an after-school program. So it has to be in a qualified after-school program. It's much like the program, though, at Thompson, so I don't know if it would be a problem. We still have the community school there. We could offer it there. And I said that those were my two issues only with the program, that at Underwood School, because it's a targeted assisted school, we don't get reimbursed for the snacks there other than the snacks for the kids who qualify. Is that correct? So last year, they made the decision here in Newport that the school department picked up the snack for those other kids, the cost of the snack program. So we have the option of doing one of two things there. We can either, if we decide to go with this program, we can continue with that snack, the 78-cent snack, reimbursement, in which the school department picks up part of the cost for those other children like it did this year. Or we could opt to, but it would cost us probably half of our buffer. I think we served last year, how many snacks? 100 and snacks last year? The whole district. So 24,000 snacks that we would, so we could, if this works out right, it could be a $24,000, well, we'd have to exclude Underwood, which is how much? Underwood was 4,500. So we could really over $20,000 buffer into our food service program by offering this. But the question would be, would we want to, make things equal for the 1 year? The following year would not be any problem because all the schools at the Pell School would qualify if we decide to continue with this program. So.
Okay. Ms. Gaines.
You did say that the students who get these snacks have to be in an after-school program, so it's not the whole population.
It's anybody that attends the after-school program.
So
Any of these schools.
Any of the, yeah.
So if they don't stay, they don't get it.
Right. You have to be in an after-school program. And
why wouldn't the program at Rogers qualify?
Because we weren't at 50%.
Free and reduced lunch.
Free and reduced lunch in last
okay.
October.
Okay.
We actually
So
we started out the year at 47%. I think we just recently hit, in May, our numbers are at 54% maybe, 52 or 54%. So we have to see when they apply to be in the program if we can get, if Rogers will fit the criteria.
Was there any movement on that universal application, like a family application?
Yes. Do you want to tell them about the new family application, the new program we have in place? Very exciting. I think they're asking about the NutriKids, like talking about the NutriKids program.
About the free and reduced program?
Right, how we now move to the district-wide, how we're moving to the district-wide NutriKid identification?
The district has purchased a piece of the NutriKids software, an additional piece. NutriKids runs the point-of-sale system, cashiering system. An additional piece that manages the free and reduced application process. And it's my understanding that now Joan, as well as some of the clerks out at the schools who actually calculate the applications, have been trained in how to run them through the NutriKids system. And the advantage to it, and I've not done it on their end, just my end, I have experience with it, is that it looks for potential matches, when they have by addresses, different last names. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with this because you probably approved the purchase of this software. So we expect to capture more of the free and reduced.
Just explain the background why I asked that question, Becky. You know why.
About why we wanted.
Yeah.
Well, the importance of identifying kids is it's manyfold. On the district level, the biggest thing is that all the future funding from the state is going to be, it's going to let all be representative how many kids we identified. For every child we identify as being free and reduced, they will count as 1.4 in a multiplier instead of 0.1. So we have got to be like diligent between, and then the date is sometime in October, so the date that they're going to use for the following year will be an October date. We as a district have got to really step it up and get all these kids identified by the end of October in order to count for our funding. And that's
The end of September.
the end of September. We don't know what the date was. I actually asked that, sent an email to Jack, but I don't know if you got it, about finding out what day that is in October. We're not sure. It's something to look into. And then the other issue, of course, is feeding kids. The more kids you identify, the more kids that are going to eat, less hungry kids or kids that do better in school. So for, the Nutrition Advisory Group, that's what our real purpose is. But this piece of software is going to really, we feel, help us, and it has helped in other districts to get these kids all
Right.
identified.
The problem was that the students at the high school were not identifying. That's why the rate is so much lower there, because the older the kid, the less
Yeah.
likely they are to admit that they need free and reduced lunch.
So if we,
This way, the software will identify families, so the kids can't escape.
It's probably the best $1,500 we've ever spent.
And
It's right up.
any of the younger siblings who sign
Yeah.
up, everybody signs up.
And there's also going to be, we're supposed to also, starting this year, have an automatic sign-up when you sign up for the Supplemental Assistance Program, SNAP program. It's supposed to also feed into this, and eventually things like children that are on
Food stamps.
on help with medical help, that should also tie into this. So it's going to be interesting to see how many more kids we get, but we definitely want, that's just a side thing to this program, but.
So with that in mind, we were told, when we met with RIDE, that this supper program, that Rogers was disqualified, and Underwood. So the other three elementaries and Thompson were eligible. And we feel it would be easy to roll into a bagged supper program, very similar to what I'm doing for the summer lunch program, a cold meal. It's administered by the after-school people who are already there. They're going to hand them their meal. There's no identification. Everybody takes it. They do have to eat it there. A little bit of paperwork, but very similar to the summer program. And we believe the application process is fairly similar to applying for summer feeding as well.
So do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved. I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary?
I will not be supporting this, even though it saves money. I just think we're taking, I know people will fall when they hear that, we're taking on more and more role of the parents. We feed them breakfast, we feed them lunch, now we're going to feed them dinner. We might as well just let them sleep in the schools and we have them for 24 hours a day. So it's like we're taking on too much role, we're taking too much responsibility away from the parent. At some point, people got to own up and be a parent. If you need parent in schools, go to parent in schools, but we're just constantly taking on roles that I don't think we should be doing.
Thank you, Mr. Leary.
Yeah.
Mr. Phelan?
I'm going to vote against it also for one reason. The parents have some obligation to feed the children. I think if a kid comes to school hungry, they should be fed. But that means there's a warning sign, and the parent should be talked to or something be done. Now, if the parent's not feeding the kid for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, there's a problem there. They get food stamps, they get other assistance, there's all projects there. And then they could even come to schools and they would be fed in one form or another. The big deal is no one's taking responsibility for their inaction. The parents they're not held liable for anything, responsible for anything. The kids are the ones that pay the price. What happens when they're not in school? They're not being fed. So until society gets after the parent, it's just going to keep going on. And all we're doing is helping that continue.
Thank you, Mr. Phelan. Ms. Boland?
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but as a school department, we're trying to do everything we can to make kids successful. And we cannot control parents at all. We've all learned that. We cannot control what happens to these kids after they leave the building at 5 o'clock. And some of them live pretty miserable lives, and some of them really hurt for food. And I don't know if you know this, but we have a backpack program for kids, too, that we feed them on the weekends.
That's right.
And so those kids eat because we send home food. So if this means one less hungry child and one child that's a little bit more prepared for school, because they've got a full belly, then I'm all for it.
It's not that I'm against feeding the child. I'm against not holding the parent responsible. They're getting away scot-free and not living up to what their responsibilities are. To me, it's a form of child abuse, and we're just making it ingrained that no one's held responsible. And the state's not doing anything. I know it's tough for us, but the state should be coming down and tell these parents that they have to do something.
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, I agree with with my colleagues here that he just said have them stay at the school. I said, don't say it too loud. However, it's what's best for the youngsters. My concern is that we have an elementary school that is cut out of it, Underwood School. I'm sure there are enough youngsters there who would qualify for this, but because the percentage is not up, there is the problem. Plus, when we're all at Pell, that will take care of that, granted, But it just seems, I can honestly, I really believe that there are enough youngsters, and not necessarily from the more economically challenged groups, who perhaps would benefit also. I'll vote for it. Still understanding that, parents should be able to take on more responsibilities, but I also know there are people who, as much as they would like, just don't happen to have the wherewithal for these extras, so.
Thank you. Any other conversations? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 5-2. Next action is to receive the Arbitrator's Award and announce the fiscal impact statement from the recently concluded TAN contract negotiations. Dr. Ambrosi?
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. This has been so widely reported in the press, I don't think it comes as any surprise to anyone. There was a hearing, an arbitration hearing that was held in Providence at Mr. Ragasta's office. He listened to the presentation of the chief negotiator from the school department side, Marianne Carroll, and the chief negotiator from TAN's side, Jane Argenteri. He carefully considered both positions, and he rendered a decision. The decision, for all intents and purposes, mirrors the tentative agreement that the collective bargaining units, collective bargaining teams from the teachers' side and the school committee side ratified under a tentative agreement. And there were some minor changes, but by and large, that was the major change. We gave you a fiscal impact statement. That fiscal impact statement is updated by what you received from Ms. Tracy today, and it's $357,000, I think. Whatever the budget said.
326.
Joe Baker took my budget, so. Thank you.
346.
No, not that one.
Oh.
The budget.
Right.
The budget, whatever.
359.
Thank you. 359. Sometimes I'm right. 359 and change. Okay. So that is the fiscal impact statement this year. The next year out. Now I need that, Wendy. Thank you. The next year out, the savings are less, but still are $215,000 for a total over the 2 years of over $550,000. So that's the fiscal impact statement as required.
Okay. The motion to receive the award and commit it to the records. I guess the next step will be to also update the contract. And
Yes.
sign that eventually. Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of receipt of the Arbitrator's Award?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, we had a comment on that?
Yeah.
All right. I would like to thank the, I'm not involved in the process all day. I'd like to thank the Office of Scunzio and Marianne Cow, what's the name?
Yeah, it's
right. They did
Yeah.
Yeah. We decided to take a new format this year, and, she did a hell of a job,
I second that.
Do you want to say anything, Steve? You're welcome to. We have to use the podium.
This doesn't work.
Yeah, that's on.
I'd like to thank all
who participated in the negotiations process. It was difficult at times, but I think we eventually got it across the finish line with the help of several parties. And certainly Vincent Ragusta Jr. did a fair, firm, and consistent job, as I have said before, in reaching the decision. It was marginally different from the original tentative agreement, and it's fair, and it'll work as we move forward. We could put this in the past and work in a collaborative manner, and that's what you'll get from the Teachers Association. Nothing but hard work for the children in Newport. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on the Arbitrators Award? Ms.
I
Bowman.
just wanted to say, I think one of the most exciting things is the extra 15 minutes in the day, and that was a huge concession on the part of the teachers, and it was really what's good for kids, and I really want to thank them for doing that for us.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6.7, which is approval of a stipend payment to city finance employees to help out with the setting up the UCOA within the Lawson accounting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. That completes the action items for this evening. 7.1, the Quinnipiac Island mentoring we've already discussed. Next is 7.2, the Rhode Island Department of Education intervention process based on having a priority and the school in warning.
Right, you have before you a memo from Dr. Fry. Essentially, it indicates that Sullivan is a priority school, Cranston Calvert is a school in warning. The State Department of Education, in its infinite wisdom, realized that the standards that are usually applied to these situations don't really apply to Newport, because in a year, we're all going to be one happy school at Pell. So they've agreed not to carry on the priority status to the new Pell school. That being said, we will continue to work with them to address those specific issues that they've outlined that have caused our students to fall short of the standards that's been established in the accountability system. They will be meeting with us at the end of August and August, September, because they're delayed. And we will sit down with them. But in the meantime, we're sitting down and planning a strategy to focus in on those youngsters at Sullivan School. Again, it's primarily the math. It was and it was the only reason that it was a school in warning. We dropped, what, 30 points down to 18. And we're not sure why, we don't even get it, and it was a specific subcategory. What was it, Carolyn?
It was grade 3 mathematics, and it was mostly, well, the biggest drop was in the short answer responses. So, that has to do with
reading and writing.
Writing and reading and
It's-
solving math problems.
Yeah.
That's it. It all begins with reading.
An area
So we will be updating the school committee after our meeting with RIDE when we find out more of what they have in mind, but I was pleased that they listened to my concerns regarding how this would operate going forward, and they realized it didn't make a whole lot of sense. Charlie?
What is going to be their intervention? Is it going to be a longer school day, or is it going to be more?
No. They've come up with a whole list of options, but the problem is, it would be different if Sullivan was going to be Sullivan forever. But Sullivan isn't going to be Sullivan for anything more than one more year. Okay, so some of the classic intervention standards that they have, like, turning it over to a charter school or throwing everybody out and opening, just doesn't make any sense, because those are multiple year activities, and they don't even plan to make those recommendations until sometime in the middle of next year. So it does become sort of irrelevant. But what we want to do between now and then is, I think we're going to go in and tell them what we think we need to do right away at Sullivan. And although they don't have as much oversight, and at Cranston Calvert. And I think one of the things we're going to do is we're going to try and put more resources for the math interventionists at Sullivan and Cranston.
I think one of the right options is to close the school and send the kids to a different school.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, which
Well, that's what I said.
reorganize.
Which is,
Mrs. Gaines.
I was going to ask you about resources. Are they planning to give us any resources?
$55,000.
Okay.
not people.
$55,000, but we won't know about that until like October or something. So I mean,
Now,
seriously,
will this be in dollars or in persons?
this
or
is
in
well.
prints
That's
lines?
what we're going to find out from them when we meet with them at the end of the month or in the beginning of September.
Ask for a math coach.
Yeah, well, that's my thoughts. But no, seriously. So if we go in October and they say the money's yours, how will you spend it? I'd put the money for an additional math coach.
Ms. Bowen?
Yeah, I have a question. Next year, do we have, are we going to have a problem with our principal only being able to work half the year at Sullivan, or?
No,
we
they
hire-
they said not.
So we only have a half-time principal?
We did this past year, and my recommendation is that we will for
So
the
there's
coming.
no, so her full salary's not in the budget then?
No, or half salaries in the budget.
Just trying to find more money.
Go back to discuss that budget item.
Oh, gee.
Okay, any
So,
other discussions on the
yeah,
intervention
Mr.
plan?
Other question, who's going to be delegated responsible for correcting this? Is it going to be Calvin Fry? Is that what your name's on this? So we're going to...
Well, you know,
Well, I mean, I just think that...
Dr. Fry is going to be first line of defense. Obviously, I will be ultimately responsible.
I mean, I've sat in this committee a long time now. I'm sure a lot of people want me to hell off, but we sat here with Rogers, didn't get accreditation, you know, and you have to look somewhere. It comes down to the board of directors making the decision, and that's us. So at some point, somebody's got to be responsible for these two schools not getting a good report. I'll just put it lightly. When you put on priority status by the state, the lowest category, that's not good. It's not good at all. And maybe Mrs. Bowen's right. Maybe you need to put a full-time principal in here. Maybe you need to do something that...
Just for 1 year, that makes it very difficult.
Okay, so we'll have another update of this in...
September, hopefully. As soon as they meet with us, then we'll update you.
Yep, okay.
But they want you to start, they get these kids improved.
No, I want us to do this before they do anything, you know, I mean, because I don't think we have the time to wait till they approve whatever plan that they
But
have
they
in
will
mind.
want to approve whatever plan you put in place.
Pardon?
Won't they want to approve?
I'm sure, but I don't think we can wait because
No.
I want
No.
to start implementing some things right
You're
away.
going to target the kids who have the problems.
Next discussion item 7.3, status of Rogers High School math intervention program for the coming year. I think we remember 2 years ago, we added a math teacher to the staff there. I think our understanding from the budget discussion is this year's math staff would be the same number of people as last year's math staff. Probably different math staff now. We'll see.
I've got to take a look and see where that's going to land us.
But it's going to still be in play.
So this,
Yeah, this is going to be in play no matter what was going to happen. This was going to be in play, so.
So again, Mr. Chairman, if I may, what's the plan? We got to, what do you always say, repeat it, Mr. Kelly, so you know, by 2014, what's going to happen?
half the kids are not going to graduate from
Correct.
Rogers High School.
Half the kids aren't going to graduate.
Okay, but let's
What's the plan?
let's be realistic. That's never going to happen. It really isn't ever going to happen. This is like the emperor's new clothes. They are not going to statewide fail all those kids. We will do whatever we can to push these kids ahead and have them achieve. But I think it's delusional to think that they'll maintain these standards. They'll be Armageddon if that happens, and it will break the bank financially because you'd have seniors going for a fifth year all over the place. So I understand that we need to do this, but please understand, my belief is this will never happen. I lived in a state where they tried to do this, and when they realized what was going to happen, they backpedaled very substantially. So So again, I think we need to do this. I think we need to make sure that kids are math proficient. But I do not think that all of these kids are going to not graduate because of the standards that they're setting now.
In an obscure place in the journal, they went through the alternatives to what this not pass it, and it's just watered down. I mean, if you participated, and if you, I don't know what else, you did your honors thing and what else, you could pass without passing the test. So they've already conceded.
They're already playing, I've heard people say they're already playing games and they're telling the kids to do worse their junior year in the math scores, because the difference is you'll graduate if you improve a certain percentage points from your junior year to your senior year. I mean, it's really pretty strange, and I'm disappointed with the way it's rolling out. But again, I saw the article in the newspaper too, Charlie, and I don't know how ultimately it'll roll out, but I think the whole thing has been disingenuous in terms of the way it's been played out.
When you come right down to it, when you read the Level 2 NECAP test questions, sample test questions, they aren't that hard. And it's absurd to be giving kids a diploma that can't answer those types of questions. And there's something really, really wrong with the school district and an educational system that can't teach those kids that level of mathematics at a very young age. Those are things kids should know at 8th grade. Somebody said, a mile's 5,000 feet, you're going to go 3/4 of the way around the track, how far did you walk? 6,000, 5,000, or 3,500. It's probably less than 5,000. It's not a hard question, They're pretty straightforward. And the fact that kids can't answer that is an embarrassment.
I agree it should happen. The question is whether or not statewide they're going to be able to hold.
And a lot of that are reasoning skills, it's reading skills. And again, I'm speaking from experience that when you have a large group who is failing a particular test, let's say, well, there's something wrong. Either the kids didn't pay attention, or the questions were faulty, or you just didn't teach it well. And sometimes it comes right down to the way the questions are written, too. I mean, I'm speaking from experience.
So we are continuing to work on this and do whatever we can to try and make sure that the youngsters do at least get the Level 2 proficiency.
Okay. Any other discussions on math intervention? Next, 7.4, plans for continued participation in Skilled USA competition. We know our Skilled USA coordinator retired this year after many years of service to the district, but that's been an extremely valuable program to the students, so
it has been.
We need to make sure this continues.
We plan on continuing it. It usually comes out with all the stipended positions, which usually happen after the job fair. Job fair has been pushed back this year, so.
Okay, so we'll have a position for Skills USA advisor at the high school.
Correct.
So, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
It says stipend $1,200. Does it have to be a union, or can it be outside union?
If someone from the association applies and they work in the district, they usually get
Because the person who's done it
preference.
may be interested in still continuing,
Well, that's a story for another day. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Obviously, she's done a tremendous job with it, and she wants to continue. We got to decide what's the, I guess the thing
We
is...
don't have to decide anything at
No,
this
we don't
point in
decide.
time until such time as people apply.
Yep.
Thanks.
Next item, 7.5, update on student truancy in family court. You recall us in June, we sent a letter to Chief Judge Bedrosian. She did call me back not too long ago. We had a nice conversation one afternoon. And she told me a couple of things. First, she completely agrees with our points that if kids aren't going to school, there's not a lot that can be done in school to teach them. Second thing she told me was Eddie Merritt's just wonderful at his job. She said she wishes every school district had an Eddie Merritt or two.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger school districts, and he does a tremendous job getting involved in these kids, getting these kids into school, getting them into court when they need to get to court. The last thing she told me, which was interesting, is she believes that they can handle more cases than we're filing. Not by a whole lot, but certainly more. So I would encourage Amy Donnelly Roach and Eddie Merritt to have a conversation about how to get perhaps some of the higher priority cases on the docket a little earlier. They did just appoint a new local judge, Mr. Levesque, from...
Chuck, yes, it's come, yes.
So they do have a little bit more capacity, so she would love to work with us, she would love to continue to have the conversation about how to get kids to attend school, and she understands the challenges it presents to a school department.
That's good. Good that she
Very nice
responded.
woman, yeah.
You know, sometimes they don't respond.
And Chuck is anxious to get to work on this issue.
Right. Good. 7.6, we review extended benefit premium and accrued interest payments, in particular the Council 94, because during their contract negotiations, 75% of the people eligible gave up those lifetime extended health benefits, and now they're due to be paid what they paid into the program.
The former business administrator did not do the calculations, so we are working on developing the calculations so people get paid.
Okay, and working with Ms. Citron on
Yes.
the annual interest accrual,
Right.
so we know what that
He-
is.
he-
So
Yeah,
they were already
oh,
paid
yeah,
that
oh, yeah, I'm sorry, they were paid their principal, it was only the interest that was outstanding.
Okay.
Oh, I did, that's,
All
yeah, yep.
Okay. So will that be finished by September, you think? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, the problem is that you do it individual by individual. Once
all-
Joan gets the interest thing, it depends upon when they start putting
A number
into
of
it,
years
so
of
it
contribution.
it is more difficult. He evidently did 3 and stopped at 3, and they were wrong.
Yep.
Oh, gee.
Okay. All right, so we'll look forward to an update on that.
It's time intensive, right?
Last discussion item, 7.7, status of Rogers High School goes green Phase 2. I think most of the rain garden work is done, right?
It
So
is,
they're-
yeah.
They're moving along? That's good.
Yeah, looks good.
Just filling in for Mr. Dickinson, who spearheaded this. I believe he's out of state and couldn't make the meeting. The 4 rain gardens with the city, Bill Riccio, the Director of Public Services, graciously offered the services of Lee Rice, Supervisor of Streets, and his crew, and they dug the rain gardens, and Scott's students did the work, and they look great. The asphalt in the middle area has all been removed. A little mistake in my memo, I failed to, I thought they were only doing 1 section, they actually did 2 sections. So instead of that 7,500 square feet, they did over 12,500 square feet, and they've put the loom in. Looks really great if you drive by. Now, Scott is on his plan. He said, I got the seed, don't worry about it. Me and my students are going to take care of it. So I believe sometime in early September, we'll see the area seeded. And it really looks a lot better than the asphalt did already.
Okay.
Did you say the loom is in?
Loom is
It's
in.
on.
Yep. There's a breakdown on the expenses so far, so he's underneath his budget. But it really was a nice effort, a good effort by the city of Newport.
And that's the courtyard area by the auditorium?
Yeah.
Closest to the auditorium, but also the area by Math, outside of Math.
Yeah, which is really nice.
Which is real nice.
Got both
Yeah.
of them done.
It's really going to be an improvement out there.
Then the next time we do the courtyard in between the academic wing and the science
Right.
wing, it'll be,
Right.
because that's horrible too.
So is his goal to do that one in the spring?
I don't know where we're.
The biggest expenses, they have to rent a special,
Put the money in it. I'll vote for it.
biggest expense, they gotta rent a special, a smaller excavator that they don't own to get underneath the canopy. So
Right.
it'll be dependent on funding and that. It's kind of a costly item of it. It was over $3,000 on this one. So.
Right.
But
Well
possibly
worth
next, if it's not in the spring, maybe next summer.
Right. Well, it's great to see the kids involved in improving their
Yeah.
school climate.
The rain
Mr.
gardens look
Dickinson-
nice too.
Yeah,
Mr. Dickinson involvement and concern for the
he's done a
environment.
wonderful job.
Good. That's great. Thank you, Paul. Almost done with that. Item 8.1, expenditure and revenue reports.
Yeah.
Already talked about that a lot.
Yeah, we don't have the July, so.
Right. 8.2 is enrollment reports.
And we sort of talked about that with the budget. The big takeaway is we have 190 kindergarten kids, 191 kindergarten kids, so we will need the 10 kindergarten teachers as we had talked about.
It's going to be the largest class in 15 years.
Oh, yeah. I had a lengthy conversation with a mother who has a kindergarten youngster who thought her kindergarten youngster should go to Underwood School. And she came from the Fort Adams area, and she was the one who basically told me what was going on in terms of that housing there, that it's become so affordable, that people are just moving there in droves. So instead of Underwood having to take youngsters from the north end to fill up 2 kindergarten classrooms, now there's not enough room to house the kids in the catchment area from Underwood in kindergarten. So I think we found out where the numbers are coming from.
They just change every
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
You think it's financial, they can't afford private kindergarten?
Save a buck.
Well, I think that a lot of these one-year naval folks have found this very affordable housing unit in Fort Adams now. And if you drive through there, a lot of kids. So I don't know how much of it is not being able to afford private school, Charlie, at this point in time. I think most of them come here and go to a public school.
I got to tell you this story. My son was on a carrier as a commander, and they had a lot of downtime. They were talking with some of the other officers. One of the more senior officers said, "Boy, that school department in Newport, isn't it?" My son had to come up quietly and say, "Gotta be careful, but my dad's on the school committee." But maybe that attitude has changed.
Okay, well, let's hope so.
Which is why we have to promote ourselves.
Okay.
I think having more kids in the school department is a great thing, creates other
Yeah.
stressors, but certainly the military families are highly valued. members of the
Absolutely.
community,
They
so
add
welcome them.
they add so much to the mix.
Yep.
Yep.
No damage reports?
Nope.
That's good. Have a motion to receive the superintendent's update as presented?
As presented.
39, count them.
Second.
Motion
That was
moved and
a
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Could have been a little longer.
I got some
come on.
suggestions.
Jeez. What do you want? It's a summer,
Lear?
Joey.
Yeah, agenda request for 9.1. I would like to start the Rogers ALP design immediately.
Okay, yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah, okay.
I can't say it's stressed that enough. I can't look at that another year the way it is.
tomorrow.
Like tomorrow.
Okay.
That's one request for agenda item for next month. The Thompson plan for 2013-14 we looked in. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Make any changes or keep it going the way we're going to go? I mean, it's the beginning. It's a long road down, but I think we should start looking at it right now.
We'll have the committee meet.
And then I would like to, our 1% that we have in our capital improvement fund is a thing that we passed by a school committee. It's never been put into the policy. I wanted to put it in our policy manual. So going forward, we're going to suspend the rules in order to get rid of your 1% of policy. So I would put in, that we have a policy request that we put the 1% capital improvement, put into our policy. And not only because it's going to be forgotten about as an action item what it has been in the past.
I think that's a very good idea.
Okay.
Then
Correct. And you guys
subsequent school committees
Can
can't
just say
just
it's-
ignore it.
Correct. And we can't ignore it either.
Unless we need a
Our Thompson
master
needs to start looking at what's the plan for 2013-14.
For
We just-
teaming.
Teaming and things like that, what are they gonna do?
So we can-
So we gotta get going on that, you know.
So when we get a policy, then we'll put that on that, at a policy meeting.
In the ALP, Rogers, it can't be stressed enough. That is absolutely the money we waste. I can't, bothers the hell out of me.
Okay.
I think the other item is, we're going to hold a workshop on the 22nd, Dr. Flowers,
Yes.
to look at our strategic
Hiring.
plan related
Yes.
to hiring and staffing.
That reflects the diversity.
And,
Yeah, but we will
and
have-
perhaps a bit before then, I'd like to do the recalls for the teachers.
Same day,
Yeah. can
what time?
we-
Like
well, the
15
meeting
minutes
is set
before,
for
I mean,
6:30.
so.
6 o'clock?
6,
o'clock?
yeah.
Okay, 6 o'clock then.
Yeah.
So that has to be
about the
advertised.
recalls, you know, I mean, all those poor teachers have been out, you know, all summer, like, in not knowing
Click that
what's
one.
going on. To
Yeah.
wait till the 22nd is crazy.
Well,
These are, wait just a minute, these are teachers that want to come back in, start their classrooms, get it set up, who just have been in, you know, limbo all summer. If we can come in early to make this happen for them, I'm more than happy to come in, you know, before the 22nd. I don't know if it can be done.
You know, I
We-
can
we-
let
we
people
don't-
know,
Who's coming back ahead?
I can let people know that it looks good, okay? You know, I've already gotten emails from folks. You know, we had to meet tonight to figure out what was going on before anybody got any notification, but now I have a clear understanding of what our needs are, so, but officially, you have to
I'm happy to have a special meeting for 5 minutes if we
Right,
need
if
to,
that's
on
what we need to
Thursday or
do.
Friday or Monday or whatever.
Right, anytime we need to, just to get them, because then,
So do
the
you
less
want-
stress we cause them.
Yeah, I think the stress will be gone after tonight when everybody will go back and they'll crunch the numbers and figure out that everybody's going
There's
to be
still some
back.
of those young ones at the bottom who's not going to know, because there are going to be a few.
So do you want to set up a
Well,
meeting?
certainly let them know. I don't.
Let's do it early, I'm all for it.
Can you let them know?
I said I could let them know, you know, with
Yeah.
99.9% certainty, so.
Will you know by Thursday? Friday? Monday?
Yeah, you know what, these are one of those things that you need to make sure of,
Yeah.
okay? And I need to find out about the job fair as well, so I'm not prepared to say.
All right, so we'll ask John on Wednesday if you could correspond with the teachers.
Yeah, certainly, I'm not,
So you can assign without us having to meet to approve, is that right?
no, I can just let them know that based upon tonight's,
Going to recommend.
you know,
Yeah.
I will be recommending.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that you have to go along with it. See what I'm saying?
Okay,
Meeting adjourned?
motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Move second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. It's hot in here.
It's hot.